are you today? I am a bit all over the place per usual, but you know what? Fuck it. I showed up. Showing up. Um, so yeah, we're here now. Anyway, but I want to kind of continue the Deaf Awareness Month conversation. This is the 16th video I've done for that. And today I really just want to highlight this hearing um, role inside of deaf community and just talk about that just for like a little bit. Well, I don't know how long it's going to be. I say a little bit, but y'all know I like to ramble. So, what I'm going to do is use the description I wrote as a guide for this conversation. So, we're going to be talking about hearing people's role in deaf community in terms of the connection to um, family, to friends, and society. We're going to be talking about are hearing people deaf community themselves. We're going to be talking about hearing people, are they part of deaf community? And who are they to deaf community? We're going to talk about why is there a division between deaf and hearing worlds. We're going to be talking about how can hearing people support us? Should hearing people be speaking over us on deaf issues? Should hearing people build platforms off of deafness or sign language? So should hearing people be trying to rank for any sign language concept, right? Should hearing people use sign language for themselves? What is hearing people's place in deaf community? And can hearing people proclaim themselves allies to all deaf? And so yeah, today I'm going to answer these questions about hearing role in deaf community from my perspective. And again, this is all my perspective, my lived experience. Deaf community is not a monolith. Um, and so obviously other deaf people are going to disagree with me. Other deaf people will agree with me. Some will agree on some things, disagree on others, right? And some are going to be hard on one of those, right? But it's about understanding a deaf perspective. I said a deaf perspective, not and you. No, a deaf. Dude, this captioner really hates me. I said a deaf. There we go. Perspective. I hate this thing. I hate it. Perspective. Okay. So, fucking deaf community role. It's really from my lived experience, and in my other playlists and a lot of my other videos, and I have a lot of sources for my thoughts on these things. Again, this one isn't going to be one of those source videos. It's going to be a me rambling about what I think based on shit I've gone through. And I love engaging with other deaf people on their deaf lived experience. So, if deaf people want to share your experience with me, I'm all about that. Even if it's different from mine, as long as you're not like, I don't think different deaf experiences need to negate each other, so we can have different opinions about these concepts and you can share your different opinion. As long as you're not putting down mine, I won't be putting down yours. We're good to go. And that's for deaf people on deaf issues. I'm saying deaf people, not deaf. um and so yeah, and but for hearing people, you have no lived experience on deaf issues, so I do not accept, again, I don't accept hearing opinion on deaf lived experiences. There's just nothing relevant for you to say. So this is one of those things where hearing people don't really need to comment on it because it's not your place to. So yeah, without further ado, I'm gonna roll my intro and let's do this thing. Hi, my name is Lexi, aka Deaf Child. I'm born deaf, hard of hearing. My team was one of the top teams between 2020 and 2024 in New Orleans and Louisiana. I began doing business as Deaf Child in 2013, marketing 2011, and sales 2009. I've earned 50 plus certifications in marketing and sales. and I have my Bachelor of Science from Loyola University, New Orleans, with a music industry studies major and a business administration minor. Visit my site at noladeafchild.com. Alright, so first of all, I want to talk about how the hearing people's role in deaf community connect to family, friends, and society. So, hearing people, a lot of hearing people, though, they tell me they've never met a deaf person, you know. Sometimes that's a thing. That's pretty common, I think, when it because of segregation and exclusion from the hearing and deaf communities, a lot of people they're not it's like they don't know a deaf person because if they're around deaf people for one reason or another aren't engaging with them. And that could be a lack of accessibility because a lot of hearing people don't give us access. Um, and so yeah, but it's also because we're a small percentage of the population. However, we are a large percentage of the population. And another thing is too, a lot of hearing people do know deaf people. They just don't perceive them as deaf, or they will invalidate their deaf identity and then say, I don't know deaf people. Um, like me, I'm hard of hearing and people say I'm not deaf, right? But I am. So you can suck my dick. Fucking, so yeah, that's a thing too. But it also has to do with how deaf people are treated in society, to where there is this divide. And we'll get to that in a minute. But a lot of hearing people, they do have deaf family members because deafness is genetic. And we've discussed that in my deaf family experience. Um, they do have deaf friends, or they go to school with deaf people, or you work with deaf people, and so hearing people, they have proximity and relationships to some of us, and sometimes it's the relationship isn't necessarily a close one. It could just be more of an acquaintance, or it could be a service provider. um, there's different relationships that hearing people have to us in their roles. They could be an interpreter. So when we talk about deaf community, though, hearing people often think that they are deaf community themselves. But that's not possible because they are not deaf. And you can't be a community that you're not a member of. You know what I'm saying? Even if you have proximity to us. Um, now you may be part of deaf community depending on your relationships. You are part of you're in deaf community in relationship to the deaf individuals you have community with. But that doesn't mean that you represent deaf community itself, because you have no deaf community perspective as a deaf person, right? Okay. Um, so there's that. So who are hearing people to us? You may be part of our lives. So to the extent that you are a part of our lives, you are a part of our community in relationship to our lives. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're part of deaf community, because if we don't have a relationship to you, you're not deaf community to us. You know what I'm saying? That's all gonna be relative, right? Um, and so why is there division between deaf and hearing communities? Deaf people, before colonialism, there was no, we had access in quote unquote America, Turtle Island. We had access. There was no division between deaf and hearing roads because of hand talk. Native people use speech and sign intertwine. Okay, so the deaf hearing cultural divide is a colonial concept that came over here through colonial assimilation, where eugenics was forced upon us, And in that divide, hearing people began oppressing deaf and eradicating sign language under the disguise that they believed that a deaf race was forming and they needed to stop it because we were a calamity to the world. And so we've covered all of this before. So they put eugenics in place against us. They began genocide against us by preventing us from having access to language. They took away our ability to work. They made sure we were unemployed. They did uh, forced sterilization on women. Forced sterilization is what I said on women. Um, and they had marriage bans. And that still persists today in terms of disability law, where we lose, um, you will lose your disability, any benefits you get if you get married. And so there's like all of these things where they were trying to stop deaf people from existing because of colonialism. And even though a lot of the main, you could consider a lot of the main atrocities that occurred to put this on to have happened between 1880 and around the 1960s to 70s is when the brunt of this um, happened, against all deaf community being impacted, on top of the cultural eradication and genocide of native people for the few hundred years before that under colonialism in America, right? So bringing it back here, we have like this divide because because of, existing under this context, you know what I'm saying, where hearing people voted for and advocated for the eugenics against us and the genocide against us. And we're still to this day trying to get hearing people to stop. It hasn't stopped, even though a lot of the atrocities that enabled these things that were put in place hundreds of years ago, 100 to depending on where we are in the timeline here, um, it's still continuing. For example, we covered the Aitken versus Lawfer court case where they are trying to limit um, testers like rights to take action, you know, in court and shit, right? Like, and so fucking, and then they're still fighting. They're trying to limit how many people can learn sign language. They're still trying to pass laws against us learning sign language and trying to stop deaf people from going to deaf schools. There's still these things that are put in place against us that we have to fight for. Um, and so yeah, fucking. So how can hearing people support deaf community? You gotta understand, because of the way in which our representation and autonomy was removed from us and the fact that we're still fighting for it, that's what we need. That's what we want, autonomy. And so anything that's not putting deaf autonomy first, in terms of deaf accommodations, deaf accessibility, deaf access, deaf representation, deaf awareness, deaf advocacy, deaf issues, then it's not helpful to deaf community, in my opinion, and it's not supportive. So here's what I mean. A lot of people, hearing people say they're supporting deaf community, and they go Alexander Graham Bell on us. Alexander Graham Bell had a deaf mother and a deaf wife. He spearheaded eugenics against us and cultural genocide against us. He's one of the biggest reasons we are so fucked today. And he claims he was helping us. And a lot of people say he was helping us. And hearing people say we should be grateful for him. That's what I'm saying. Hearing people are constantly trying to speak over us and act like we need to get over it. And I'm not about that shit. Just letting you fucking know. Um, and so, yeah. Fucking, and then when it comes to that, should hearing people be speaking over deaf people on deaf issues? No. So how can you support us? Let us speak for ourselves. Give us the platforms. Now, here's what I don't like. If you're a hearing person building your entire platform off of deaf issues, stop. Problematic. But if you're a hearing person and in your journey as a content creator or in your journey just socializing and speaking and processing where you process, you discuss where you stand on deaf issues and you're processing your journey on how you want to be better in deaf community, that I support. You're not going to get it right all the time. And I don't expect hearing people to, because you have no deaf lived experience and you don't understand what it's like to be deaf, I don't expect you to understand everything that you're doing wrong. And I don't just look at a hearing person discriminating and say, oh, well, here's a piece of shit who doesn't care, you know? For me, it's how do you react and do you take accountability? Do you change? Do you do better? What type of environment do you create? What type of space do you moderate? These types of things factor into where I go, okay, well, fuck you. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense. Like I try not to just to go from 0 to 100. And when I do, it's usually because I repressed something for so long that it exploded out of me. I really do try my best to communicate. Like for me, if something blows up, there was escalating points typically for where it blew up for me. Um, and so that's why I'm with trying to have this like journey of truth and reconciliation and deaf community. Um, when it comes to building and maintaining relationships with hearing people, right? So when hearing people, on some roles, if you do sign language and you're a service provider to deaf people, you have no choice but to speak on deaf issues if you want us to know you fucking exist, right? And so I'm not saying don't be an interpreter sharing that you're an interpreter, right? I'm not saying that. I'm saying just don't be an interpreter speaking over deaf people on deafness. You know what I mean? For example, a hearing interpreter, I covered this in, she actually, I'm not even sure she is a hearing interpreter to be honest. But okay, we're gonna talk about two people. One I know is a hearing interpreter. One, I'm not sure if they're actually an interpreter or not, but they're still problematic and they claim to be one. So the Autumn Thomas versus Mimi Star video on my YouTube channel, that one, Autumn Thomas claims to be a hearing interpreter, but is trying to tell a deaf person that the deaf person can't interpret. Let that sink in. Yeah. And then another one. What's her fucking name? Murny Ann 83. MERNIE 83. This bitch was teaching people that this was the sign for Israel, but it's actually a sign for Jewish. This is the sign for Israel. She had people saying, we can't let Jewish people win. And that was Misnomers, this bitch named Misnomers. And this is and so Myrnie Ann 83 was trying to teach sign language, but doesn't actually know sign language well enough to teach it. And then she was trying to claim that this is water, but it's wine. This is water. She was signing help wrong. She couldn't sign help right. I have to look at the video, see what she did. I know she had the hand placement wrong, and there was something else that she did that was like, I was like, what the fuck are you doing? And she wasn't teaching that it's a directional verb either. And she was teaching also I think she was teaching the wrong variation. I think she was signing I help you was the sign for help or something like that. And she wasn't discussing how it's a directional verb. And she had her hand placement wrong. And then she was signing food 4 times and wasn't teaching the difference between a noun and a verb. And a verb is once and a noun is twice. She wasn't teaching that. Instead, she's just got people doing the movement 4 times. And it's like, okay, people are gonna think you're like really fucking hungry or something. They're gonna be like, are you starving? Like they're gonna be like food, like or eat, like I need it. You know what I mean? Like when you exaggerate or do a lot of movements, that's when you're like exaggerating, like to put emphasis typically on something. You know what I mean? And so, like, and so these are examples where hearing people are trying to speak over and I'm trying to correct them and they're shaming me for it and allowing their hearing audience to shame me. And I go show all of my, and it got me to the point where on both of these situations, I'm like showing all of my deaf friends. I'm like, am I wrong? Am I wrong? Am I overreacting? And they're like, no, fuck that bitch. You know what I'm saying? Um, so fucking, yeah, like, there's just like that's when I bitch about hearing people speaking over deaf, I'm not talking about like God, there's this Raven Simone's interpreter. Not Simone, that's from That's So Raven. Hold up, why am I like this? It's my brain. I'm crashing. Anyway, fucking Blue Jay Raven, what's her fucking name? God damn it. I love how That's So Raven is what came out of me though. That's my millennial ass. Okay. Okay, anyway. Sorry, I'm like this. But Raven has an interpreter whose name I'm fucking blanking on. My Intentions did it. My Intentions did it on Instagram. Raven's interpreter, that's a good example, I think, of he shows his journey in deaf community without speaking for deaf people. He just shows what his career is doing. He shows where he is. He shows where he stands on different issues, but he's not sitting there like, fuck you, deaf people. I know sign language better than you, like Murney Ann 83 does. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Like there are really good examples, for hearing people who advocate for us and support us. I just need to think of them. They're gonna come to me any minute now. Anyway, and so that really answered the next question I had but didn't repeat, which was should hearing people build platforms off of deafness or sign language? And that would be for me like only to the extent that you are making it known to deaf community that you're here for us in terms of if you're providing a service to us and we need to know about it. Other than that, if you have that relationship with us and you're sharing your life with us, there is a respectful way to do it. We'll have to marinate and talk about that later, but there is a respectful way. That is good. But if you're just trying to, say you're a hearing person with a deaf kid and you're just shoving the fucking camera in your deaf kid's face to exploit your child because they're deaf for social media, then fuck you. Because that's not awareness, that's just child exploitation, inspiration porn, ableism, autism, and you trying to represent shit you don't fucking know. So yeah, because if you're not deaf, you can't represent deafness, and you shoving a fucking camera in a child's face who can't consent is fucked up. Suck my dick. There's no deaf awareness in that because they haven't processed how fucked up you're fucking them up to be able to have their deaf awareness journey yet. Like, goddamn. That's, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, tired of that shit. Tired of seeing hearing people shove cameras up in their deaf kids' faces. Um, Now, I do have mixed feelings and different opinions about anyone who is oppressed we don't have the same choice to not share what our experience is on that oppression as hearing people or as people who are not oppressed do. And so, to that extent, sometimes you have no choice but to document and publicize what is happening with your child, and you will have to make that decision in order to advocate on human rights issues, right? And there is a way to do that. And I think to do that, though, for example, like when deaf people do so for advocating for um, our connection to sign language and how we are able to still function just as anyone else, how we need that representation for our access in society. Um, and deaf people choosing to show moments of our lives to show that is different, in my opinion, than when you are filming your child to do all of these different trends to go viral and constantly filming them 24/7 with a video in their face to make content every fucking day. Like, what? Stop it. And when you're trying to exploit sign language, but you have a very base, minimal grasp, there's a way to respectfully show learning your sign journey. But when you have a rudimentary grasp on sign language and you're trying to represent yourself as a fluent signer and you're trying to represent yourself in deaf community, but deaf people are oppressed for it, that's fucked up. And your proximity to deaf people doesn't make it any better. It just makes it worse, actually, because you're tokenizing in that scenario to cause harm. And that's what a lot of hearing people do, right? Um, and like, I don't know, because of the way, for example, um, a lot of deaf community, we've had our culture taken from us. There is a point though to where showing us getting that culture back, even in childhood, is important because we need that representation. Other kids need to see themselves represented too. So I have mixed feelings on where is the line on exploitation versus representation when it comes to representing children on issues in terms of oppression, right? But that's going to be a whole different conversation itself. But that's why there is, for me, like a questionable line that I'm trying to find out what is the boundary. I still haven't discovered what is the decolonized way to approach that. But yeah, fucking so, all that to say, so what is hearing people's place in the deaf community, right? And that is going to depend on your relationship to us. And so if you have no relationship to us, then you have no place in deaf community because you have no relationship to us, right? You would have to build a relationship to us to then start getting access to a place in deaf community. But your place in deaf community is going to depend on your own life choices as well as how you were born. So some hearing people, you're going to be born into hearing families with no deaf people. So you will not have a familial role in deaf community unless you marry in, right? Um, and then other hearing people, like my family, we are mixed hearing deaf. They are very used to deaf people because born into it. And so they already have that role born into it in terms of their familial connection. So that's a place that some hearing people do or don't have in deaf community. Other roles could be um, our service providers or our community members in terms of who do we interact with on day to day. Are you a coworker? Do we go to school with you? Are you a barista at the coffee shop we go to every day? You might have a place in our community, right? Um, and so in that regard, are you providing access to us? Are you letting us tell you what are the accommodations we need, and giving each deaf person their own individual accommodations. Are you listening to deaf people on deaf issues? Are you letting deaf people speak for themselves? Are you paying deaf people for their labor? That's another thing. A lot of hearing people, they expect free labor from deaf people on deaf issues. You should be paying a deaf person. Otherwise, you're asking deaf people for their access to their trauma. Not every deaf person will feel that you're touching on trauma when you ask them about deafness. Not every deaf person is going to feel that every deaf issue is necessarily trauma, but for a lot of us, it is. And because you don't know what is or isn't, it's just safe to assume that it is because of historical context, in my opinion. So, yeah. And then there's also the underemployment thing, right? So we are way underemployed compared to hearing people. And because of that, because of how hearing people made it so we wouldn't be able to have the same access to work as y'all, that's why we need you guys to not expect us to do free work for you. And that includes educating you on our deafness. So for me, I have the free tools available to you on my website and on my YouTube videos and in the material that I produce, right? And then with all deaf people, you can just pay us, just ask us and pay us. And if you can't pay us, then you need to respect our decision to not provide free emotional labor if we choose not to. And whether or not you're paying us, you need to respect how we express ourselves on deaf issues. And if you feel entitled to police our language, then you're not in a place where you're decolonizing to support deaf community, and you need to start there first, because you don't get to police how we emotionally respond to oppression. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. So to that regard, can hearing people proclaim yourselves as allies to all of us? I do not believe you can or should. I believe that is tokenization of your relationships to other deaf people to act like you're an ally to all of us just because you know one of us. Because it's just fake. Like, just being like, yeah, I'm everybody's friend. Like, really? If there's no way you actually really genuinely like every fucking body. And if you do, I don't fucking believe you. Like, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it doesn't feel right to me. And I also feel like a lot of hearing people will use that to kind of disassociate or have some dissonance from their own discrimination. They will say some fucked up shit, and then you'll say, hey, that's discrimination against deaf. And then they'll be like, I'm an ally, so no, it's not. And you're like, bitch, fuck you. You're not my ally. You don't get to tell me you're my fucking ally while you're discriminating against me. That's my experience with most people. I've never met anybody that called themselves an ally that didn't discriminate against people ever. Every time I see someone call themselves an ally, I'm just like, yeah, they're a piece of shit, and I'm never wrong. They never prove me wrong. I would love for somebody to call themselves an ally and prove me wrong about that, but it's just never happened in my experience. But yeah. So, in conclusion, just summarizing, this is me questioning hearing role in deaf community at this time. It's just what I've processed in my life so far. Um, if I remember, I'll probably get around to doing like a reading of some of the comments that have been left on my video. In one of my videos, I did like a comment on my deaf family experience, and one person commented it's helpful review. They were trying to argue with me about the concept of that of deaf people needing hearing people input on our issues, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, if that's how you're gonna be, this isn't the space for you, letting y'all know right now. Um, and so if you're a hearing person, before you comment, you just need to ask yourself, is this about deafness? If the answer is yes, you should probably just not fucking comment. Don't comment. And it's, what if you want to know something? Okay, you can pay me. You can book a consultation That's either $69 for 15 minutes, $150 for 30 minutes, or $300 for an hour from me at this time. And that's what I need in order to provide you that emotional labor. Other deaf people may offer cheaper consultations, and so you can look into other deaf people. Those are my rates as of September 2024. And yeah, other than that, what you can do is you can request I was gonna suggest requesting videos from me, but you know what? Don't, because I don't want to feel obligated to. So never mind. I'm not offering that. I was thinking about it, but I decided I changed my mind. No, no, I'm good. No, I'm good. I already see that not ending well. I would like to. I would love to be able to offer, like, tell me what you want to know and I'll make a video for you. But my past experience offering limitless education on deaf issues to hearing people is that typically they don't actually give a fuck. They just want me to tell them that it's okay to discriminate against me. You know what I mean? So I'm not even gonna go there. If you can watch my channel and just let me process what I process when I process it. How about that? You can do that for free. All right, I'm gonna wrap up there. So, hearing role and deaf community, we love you. We love to have you here when you support us. Thank you for those that do. Thank you for the hearing people that show up for us, and for the ones who don't, fuck you. All right, have a great day. You guys are awesome. I appreciate you, and bye. Thanks for watching. Join the loyalty program at noladeafchild.com/loyalty and check in during live streams to get points for rewards.